Hey, Pretty Girl Club. Welcome to Decentering Men, episode 13. So, this episode is based off of a comment that I received from one of you guys. By the way, be sure to join the Patreon because I do lots of custom content in there. I'm uploading in there multiple times a day as well. So, I love when you guys comment because it really helps me to create content. But this commenter says, as a single and child-free woman, I am doing financially better than all of my married friends. I wound up having to really put up some boundaries around the topic of money with them. These women work like slaves in their careers and in their home, and they are always struggling. It's ridiculous. They were always asking to borrow money from me, which they'd always pay back, but I just couldn't understand why they weren't going to their husbands for money. Loaning out money gives me anxiety, which is why I'd rather give than loan. But I'm not giving my hard-earned money to a woman with a whole able-bodied, employed husband, my money. So I simply put a stop to loaning them money. These men are so selfish, and they are definitely not looking to give more than that 50% that so many women agree to. That's why I would never. The crazy part is that their lives weren't like this before they got married. They were all living abundantly before they tied themselves financially to these men. Keep in mind, they're all married to men who work good jobs too. Marriage is a complete ripoff for women. I have noticed this as well. So you guys know that I come from a very waspy type of background. And when I say wasp, I mean white Anglo-Saxon Protestant. So I have been around lots of married people. In fact, the majority of the people that I grew up around have been married. Both of my parents are married. They are still together even after all these years or whatever. But a lot of the marriages I witnessed were actually non-black marriages. So this is why I have smoke for the divestors, because I feel like a lot of the divestors think, oh, if you just marry a white guy who's rich, then suddenly all your problems are solved. If you just marry an Asian guy, your problems are solved. And it's like I've seen all different kinds of people being married around me, and I have noticed this same pattern as well. So, for example, I knew this one white couple in my hometown, and the woman was about 10 years older than me, and she got married to this rich white guy, and they had kids, and she was a stay-at-home wife and mother. They lived in this big, beautiful house, and, she was like a soccer mom or whatever, and I remember them talking about how they were having problems in their marriage. Well, the woman, she was talking about her problems with him in the marriage. She just kind of opened up to me about it, and she was saying how he went out and bought like a Range Rover or some sort of car without telling her. And I was like, okay, well, isn't he wealthy or whatever? So that's not a big deal. And she was like, no, the big deal is that he went out and bought this expensive car without telling me, and he can just go to the lot and buy whatever he wants for himself. But if I were to say, I want to just go to the lot today and purchase a car, then I am not I'm not allowed to do that basically in the marriage. So she was saying how that was a huge problem because even though they did have the money, and even though she was technically provided for, most of the leisurely excess money, he spent it on himself. And he kind of had the mindset of, oh, well, you're already not paying bills and stuff. And basically this is my money, so I can do whatever I want with it. So long story short, this woman who is married to this wealthy guy, she actually went back to college and she got a job and now works in the medical field. So she actually opted to go back to work so that she could have her own money. She opted to pay thousands of dollars to go to college, or to at least have him pay for the college, and spend all this time taking all these tests to get all of these medical certifications and stuff. And she now works a job as a nurse. She literally felt like going back to school and becoming a nurse and working night shifts was a better option than just being a stay-at-home wife and mom to this man because of the power imbalance that happened with this man's money. And this is a misconception that I see a lot in the femininity YouTube space. I see a lot of women who make the false assumption that men are inherently generous, or that if a man has a lot of money, then he's just going to be lavishing you with gifts 24/7. No, the man is going to purchase for you whatever he wants to purchase for you. And a lot of people are very ignorant when it comes to marriage. Do you think that you can just get married to someone and never talk about finances and just take his credit card and go buy whatever you want 24/7? Absolutely not. Any sane adult would want to know, like, okay, what are you planning to spend? What are you doing? And so these guys, oftentimes, even if they are the ones who are providing financially and all that, they are still giving their women spending limits. They don't say, Oh, yeah, you can just spend up all of the money from the mortgage and you can spend up tens of thousands of dollars. No. For the most part, these guys are giving these women allowances. And usually, whatever allowance that man is giving you, it's nothing more, it's nothing substantially more than what you could have made at a 9 to 5 job. I'm just saying. And then I remember this same woman who she was with the guy and he just went and bought a car. And then she was upset because she felt like since he was making all the money, he could spend as much money as he wanted on leisurely items. But she could only spend the allowance money on leisurely items, which was obviously not the same amount as to just walk onto a car lot and purchase a brand new truck. So I remember one time we were having a conversation about porn and about guys watching porn, like married guys, like not wanting to have sex with their wives, or how porn is a problem in a lot of marriages. And I remember her argument was, oh, men are watching porn because like you don't please your man enough and you need to do more to try to please him sexually, and then he would not watch the porn. So she had this mindset of blaming the woman for the man's inability to control his sexual urges. And so that actually got me thinking, though. I was thinking, wow, wait a minute. So you're probably going out of your way to try to please him sexually. You're cooking all of his meals. You're cleaning up after him, because they didn't have a maid, by the way. That's another thing. A lot of people assume that if a guy is wealthy, that he's going to spend his money on the same things that a woman would spend her money on. Of course, women care about paying for maids because women are socialized to be the maid. But a lot of men, they have no problem living in their own filth. They have no problem having laundry spread out all over the floor, dirty dishes in the sink, rats running around. They don't care. The average man is more likely to spend his money on strippers than on a maid. So anyway, this woman, they didn't have a maid. So she was going through all of this stuff, like raising the kids, taking them to school, taking them to soccer practice, trying to please her man in the bedroom, all so that he could just go out and gallivant and spend all of his extra money on buying himself a new car. And she doesn't even have access to that kind of money. And on top of that, she was the type of woman that would blame herself if the man has eyes for other women, or, still wants to jack off to other women or fuck other women. Fun fact, this same woman, she actually got like a boob job. She got fillers and all that. And I'm not saying that she only got that stuff so that she could try to keep her husband's gaze. But I did notice that as the years went on, she ended up getting the implants removed. So I do think that sometimes people can have breast implant illness and other issues like that. But it did make me think about how a lot of women, they do go through a lot of stuff, like trying to get all these surgeries to keep their wealthy husband only having eyes for them. And, if the guy has a porn problem, I have witnessed women who they will try to look like whatever their man's type is, or like whatever he is attracted to. And I've seen women go through all of these changes, kind of changing up their looks to hopefully keep their husband's attention. I'm not saying that that's what she was trying to do, but it really did get me thinking about that. Another pattern that I've noticed is how when I was in my hometown and I was around a lot of married women, I was one of the only single women when I was in my early 20s, because I'm from a place where, for the most part, a lot of girls, they tend to get married off and stuff. Like I said, I come from a WASP background, so kind of that white suburban, very Christian socialization. A lot of people were Christian or Catholic or very conservative. So, but I remember that a lot of these women who were married, they would be jealous of me. And a lot of women would make comments like, oh, but you're so pretty and you're so confident. I've noticed that a lot of women, they tend to say that I'm so confident or whatever. And I'm thinking, I don't consider myself the most confident person in the world. I still get insecure if I look ugly or if I gain weight or, about random things. I don't think that I'm super confident, but I have noticed that a lot of times the women in my life who did get married, they would go from being confident and beautiful and stuff to suddenly not having as much confidence, and suddenly their self-esteem starts to go down. And I've noticed this with housewives, because I grew up around housewives. I was a housewife myself, and I hated it, by the way. But a lot of housewives that I've met, in fact, I've never met a housewife / stay-at-home mother who feels absolutely fulfilled, and all she wants to do for the rest of her life is be a housewife and mother and nothing else. I have never seen that. I've never heard of that. So the fact that people here on the internet are aspiring to that, that tells me that one of two things. Either number one, you've never been married, obviously. Number two, you've never been divorced. And three, you're kind of stereotyping marriage, or you're like, you've got stars in your eyes when it comes to these wealthy men, especially these wealthy white men. You think that, oh, if only I marry him, then all my problems will be solved and I'll just be happy and living a leisurely life. Spending 8 hours a day on cooking and cleaning, that is not leisurely. I don't spend 8 hours a day cooking and cleaning when I'm living by myself. So I've witnessed a lot of these women, they're going out of their way to read all of these books on how to please your man sexually, how to have a good marriage, how to be a submissive wife, how to conflict, like how to resolve conflict. They're doing all of this. Meanwhile, the man, he ain't doing shit. He's just going to work and coming home, which is something that he would have been doing whether he was with you or not. So generally speaking, nothing really tends to change, or at least not as much of a man's identity changes in a marriage. So I have noticed men are actually quite good at decentering women. They're actually fantastic at that. That was a decentered boss-ass move that husband made. He just said, fuck it, I'm going to buy myself a car today. And I don't give a fuck what my wife thinks about it. That is a very female decentered mindset to have. And I think that because most men will decenter you, whether you're married to him or not, this is why I promote women decentering men, because yes, if you're living with him and marrying him and you're expecting him to do all this stuff for you, most men are not even thinking about that. They don't wake up in the morning thinking, how can I please Sarah today? How can I do this for Sarah? No, a lot of men operate off of the bare minimums. So they'll be like, okay, how do I make sure Sarah doesn't get mad? All right, let me fold these towels, because if I don't, she's going to nag at me and she won't have sex with me tonight. So I guess I'll fold these towels before I go off to work, and then I'll really be free. And has anyone ever noticed how a lot of men won't leave relationships? They will just emotionally check out and cheat. And I believe that the reason that a lot of men don't leave is because they're benefiting too much out of their relationship with you. So even if they're not benefiting in some areas, a woman's presence often enhances a man's life, because even though I would say that men are decentered from women, meaning that they don't revolve their whole lives around the woman once they get in a relationship, I have noticed that men do still seek validation from other men. So having a woman, that gives you validation in the eyes of men. And also it gives you validation in the eyes of women, because a lot of women will view a man as, oh, well, he's higher value because he's married. He's higher value because he's been divorced. He's higher value because other women want him. So a lot of men will actually use a woman as a tool to attract other women. So they will use you as this flexing item or as this status symbol. So I've noticed that most men, they just won't leave the relationship. They will just cheat, because I have noticed that a lot of men, they need multiple women to fulfill the different voids in their life. So they may use their wife to fill the emotional void, and then they'll use another woman, a sex worker, to fill his sexual voids. They will use female friendships to fill their companionship voids. And have you ever noticed, when it comes to men making friends with women, have you ever noticed how most men, they have no interest in being friends with a woman who is quote unquote ugly or repulsive? I've never in my life seen a guy go out of his way to hang out with and get to know and become good friends with a woman who he finds extremely ugly and extremely unattractive. I've only noticed guys putting effort into female friendships if the female has some sort of quality that he finds attractive in some way. Maybe she has a big booty, maybe she has a phenotype that he likes, maybe she fits his secret kink that he doesn't tell others about. So she's like that ratchet girl. Maybe he has like a hood kink and she kind of fits that kink. Or maybe he has a kink for women who are very submissive and doormats, and so she fits that kink. Have you ever noticed how a lot of guys are turned on by a woman being a doormat? Or a woman, quote unquote, submitting to them in the bedroom? So I've noticed that a lot of men actually have this sexual kink for women who have kind of these doormat personalities, or these submissive, you can cheat on me, you can treat me any kind of way. I've noticed a lot of men, they will still try to surround themselves with those types of women because it makes them feel excited to know that, like, oh, I can dominate her. Like, she'll just do whatever I say. She'll just be my bitch. But as far as this comment, I have definitely noticed that a lot of women who are, they're unmarried and they're not like living with a guy and all that, I have noticed that those women tend to be a lot happier, a lot healthier physically. Because one other thing that I've noticed is that even housewives, they will get married and they'll start kind of gradually gaining weight because of the stress, in my opinion. I feel like it's based on stress. I feel like it's based on prioritizing everyone else's needs other than her own. So she won't spend as much time working out as she used to because some women, I mean, I can be like this myself. There are some days where I want to go to the gym for like 2 hours minimum. So, but if you're a housewife and have kids, or you have to pick up the boys from school and soccer practice, and then you have to like do all this other stuff, you may not have that free time to be able to spend in the gym. Or, maybe you like to only cook vegan meals for yourself, but your husband and kids, they like having meals with meat in them. So you don't feel like cooking two extra meals every day or 3 extra meals every day for yourself. So maybe you have started eating a different diet, or trying to align your diet with your husband's diet, or align it with what your children like to eat. So I have noticed that a lot of women, the more male centered they are, kind of like the worse they tend to look, or like, the more they gain weight. And to be honest, I think that this is even true with some of the femininity YouTubers on here. And I'm not saying that the only cause of weight gain is like, if you're in a relationship, because I know people can have other problems that cause them to gain weight, but I personally feel like relationships in general, if you're not careful, they can be a huge distraction. I feel like for a lot of women, relationships tend to actually distract them from their goals, whereas for a lot of men, relationships tend to help push them closer to their goals. Because think about it, you've got a woman at home cooking and cleaning for you and cooking you whatever meals you want. So that's something you don't even have to spend mental energy on. You can spend more time at the office. You can spend more time coming up with plans for that business you're going to build. This is why I believe that men want women more than women want men. I also believe that men want marriage and relationships way more than women do, because men thrive more on relationships. I actually don't believe that I believe women can thrive when they are single, but I've noticed that a lot of men, they cannot thrive in the same way when they don't have a woman being their helpmate. Have you ever noticed that? A lot of men view women as, you're supposed to help me. And notice how a lot of men who want marriage, they need help with something. I don't think I have ever in my life seen a guy say that he wants marriage and then he doesn't have expectations of what he wants help with within that marriage. Usually a guy will say, I want a wife because she can cook for me, she can clean for me, she can birth my children and raise them, she's going to be my free sex worker. Usually men don't say that, but they'll be like, we can have sex anytime, and basically she can do whatever I want in the bedroom. Because don't even get me started on the orgasm gap. Most women do not even have orgasms a lot of the times when they're having sex with men. So that includes in marriages. I don't know why people think that suddenly you get married and every time you have sex, you're having an orgasm and suddenly you're just so happy and you just live happily ever after. No, that's false. These statistics apply to women across the board, whether you're married, unmarried, old, young, black, white. But I have noticed that I personally am very happy when I'm not like centering my whole life around this relationship. And I have also noticed how a lot of women who are housewives, they may not even have kids, but their husbands are still determining how much money they get to spend, what they get to do. Like these women who are housewives to these wealthy men, they're not just going out and shopping and kind of like living this hot girl summer type of lifestyle and going on shopping sprees. Nope, I've only seen women who are unmarried doing that. And I have seen some men who will try to invest money in a woman up front, like if he's trying to pursue her for sex or a relationship or whatever. But generally speaking, women who have been married 20, 30, 40 years, no, they're not living that lifestyle. So, and by the way, there's nothing wrong with this. There's no right or wrong way to do your relationships. So if you're the type of woman who is like me and you value things like freedom, you value things like being able to buy whatever you want when you want, you value things like wanting to have your apartment a certain way or enjoying how cute and fuzzy your pink blankets are, and you like to cook in the way that you want to, you have very specific goals for yourself, then I believe that the more you center men, kind of the more you'll start to get distracted from your own goals, because obviously you are not centering yourself anymore. You're not going towards whatever you think your own purpose is. You have a new purpose now. Part of your new purpose is to serve this man. And by the way, this is totally normal, because I would assume that if you love someone, you would naturally want to serve them, right? So then that actually proves my point that if you are in a marriage, you are going to spend a significant amount of your time serving that man. But unfortunately, a lot of men, they do not serve you in the same way. They do not reciprocate in the same way because a lot of men, they will enjoy your servitude while you're doing it. But then later on, when you ask for that energy back, suddenly all of the things you did, oh, well, that wasn't a big deal. Well, nobody asked you to do that. Well, you didn't have to clean up all those dishes. You didn't have to stay up until 2 a.m. Cooking for me. Didn't nobody ask you to do that? A lot of men tend to respond to women's concerns with things like gaslighting. A lot of them tend to respond with things like deflection. Anyway, what do you ladies think? Let me know in the comments section and I'll talk to you next time. Stay pretty, ladies.